Okay, so welcome. Welcome to Writers Resist Reads, our July 23 reading. I'm Katie Gressid. I'm the publisher and one of the founding editors, along with Sarah Marchant, whom I introduced people to earlier. But Sarah, wherever you are now, oh, there you are. For anyone who just joined us, you want to wave?
Hi, sorry. Yes, I had to go adjust noises. It's very loud here. So hi, everybody. Welcome. Nice to see you. Nice to meet you.
Let's see, and Debbie Hall is here. Debbie, for the people who just joined, you want to give us a wave? Um, Debbie is one of our poetry editors and again is a fabulous photographer. So sometimes we get lucky and we can use her photographs for illustrations. I don't know if Ying Wu, Ying is another one who's sort of leaving our little world because she got a promotion at UC San Diego and has much more demanding work now. Consequently, I'm going to take advantage of this moment. We are a fully volunteer publication. We're funded just by donors. We feel absolutely lucky to be able to give, as teeny tiny as it might be. We're really pleased to be able to give honoraria to our writers and when we have artists submitting visual arts. But consequently, when we occasionally announce we are in search of a new editor, we are acutely aware that we're asking folks to consider unpaid labor, which is something I actually teach about. So I do feel a little guilty about this, but I do it nonetheless, which is, I'm going to repeat that indeed we're seeking a Black poetry editor or a poetry and prose editor. We want someone to assure that our editorial decisions are based on experiences and sensibilities as diverse as the writers we publish. So we have a really pretty diverse body of editors right now, but we need to do better. And DW did just leave us for paid work. So we're really proud of her, but I'm indeed asking for you all, if you can, to put the word out. Again, we're looking for someone willing to do unpaid labor. As I mentioned earlier to folks who joined us really early, DW was able to turn this into paid editorial positions. So if you know a younger person maybe who's trying to get into this field professionally, it might be a nice stepping stone for that. Or if you just know someone who is absolutely adoring of the written word, I'd love to hear from them. And I'm going to stick my my email address in the chat. So if you know of someone, if you would share the word, that would be really lovely. You can ask them to email me. Again, I just put my email address in the chat. Let's see, I think that's it. So let's get started. Elizabeth Spencer, is it Spraggins or Spraggins?
Spraggins.
Elizabeth Spencer Spraggins has written a really, really powerful poem. We all really took to it. Elizabeth is a fiber artist, writer, and poet who taught in North Carolina community colleges for more than a decade before returning to her home state of Virginia. Her work has appeared in 80+ journals and anthologies in 11 countries. She's the author of 3 original poetry collections, Waltzing with Water, With No Bridle for the Breeze, and The Language of Bones. So please join me in welcoming Elizabeth Spencer Spraggins.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here among all of you wonderful writers. I'm quite honored. This one is entitled Slave Cemetery, and it's been inspired by the continuing movement in my state of Virginia to recognize the importance of artifacts and locations that are rich in history, not just of white individuals, but of specifically of Black and Indigenous individuals. And so this poem was written to honor those people. Slave Cemetery. Anguish overflows, levees lined with unbleached bones. A channeled fury gathers silt of centuries, and the river roars their names. Thank you.
You're muted, KB. Do you want me to introduce Karen? Okay. Karen Kilcup is going to read us a poem called Throwaway. She's a teacher and writer for more than 40 years. She's the Elizabeth Rosenthal Professor of American Literature, Environmental and Sustainability Studies, and Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies at the University of North Carolina, Greensboro. She feels fortunate to work with many students of color, first-generation students, and LGBTQI+ students at this minority-serving institution. Their courage and imagination inspire her and give her hope. Her forthcoming book, winner of the 2021 Winter Goose Poetry Prize, is titled The Art of Restoration. Hi, Karen.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for coming. It's great to see everybody. I want to give a shout out, first of all, to Susan Bryn Morrow. If you look at the poem as it appears in Writers Resist, you'll see that this poem was inspired by her story in The Nation titled The Finger Lakes Are Being Poisoned. And it's really worth a read. She does a deep dive into what's going on there, and including the involvement and the deleterious effects on Indigenous people in the area. So anyway, this emerged from that. And the epigraph is from Rachel Carson. Who would want to live in a world which is just not quite fatal? A one-woman revolution, Jemima Wilkinson was stoned for preaching the light that lives in everyone. The public universal friend was driven north from Philadelphia to the Finger Lakes, her movement forecasting what would follow: women's rights, abolition, the Underground Railroad. Today, the monstrous trucks lumber north with New York City's trash, creating a mountain baptized Seneca Meadows, leaving a trail of sludge and garbage that leaches slowly into the lakes, their stretched out digits trying to grasp what it all means, will mean, in a moment when land and water and history are for sale by the town council, which spews the gospel of higher taxes and buries ever deeper the women of Seneca Falls, Seneca Lake, and the sparkling railroad that carried so many to fresh futures. In this place, this time, what does clean mean? What or who is dirty? Will we push the plastic and the people underground for good? Or will the glacial hands that hold the Haudenosaunee send the refuse down, down, until it returns elsewhere in poisoned protest? Thanks.
Okay, I'm gonna now play Sue Katz's short story, which she recorded for us since she could not be here. So let's see if I can make this work. Share my screen. Share. Can everybody see that or no? Yep, okay. So let me tell you a little bit about Sue. I have so many things open now, I can't get to my little blurb about Sue. Here we go. Okay, so she can't be here, Sue Katz can't be here, but she was really bummed and shared this with us. I don't think she'd ever done this before, so she learned how to now record her poetry, which was pretty cool. Sue's journalism and fiction have been published in anthologies, magazines, and online on the 3 continents where she has lived, worked, and rabble-roused. Her writing has appeared in such publications as Gertrude Press, Writers Resist, Brilliant Flash Fiction, and the Boston Globe newspaper. Her fiction books often focusing on the lives of elders, including A Raisin in My Cleavage, short and shorter stories, Lillian's Last Affair, and other stories, and include Lillian in Love. Katz's first play was produced by the prestigious The Theater Offensive in honor of Stonewall 50. So let me play her video for you. I hope this is going to be loud enough. We'll see what happens.
Hello, My name is Sue Katz. My business card says Wordsmith and Rebel, and by that I mean that I am a writer and I am an activist. For the last some years, my activism has centered on the particular needs of elders, especially of LGBTQ elders, and that's what my writing's about, and my activism, and this story that I'm about to read to you. But first, I have to thank Writers Resist, and I have to thank Kit Bake and Gresset for publishing this story and for caring about these issues. So it's called The Failed Real Estate Caper. The first thing Miriam noticed when the taxi dropped her off at Ruby's house was the for sale sign on the lawn. She took a magic marker out of her handbag and wrote "not" in capital letters, but it turned out too faint to be easily seen. It's a thought that counts, she muttered with no small measure of anger. Ruby had fallen and broken her elbow, and that can happen. But Ruby's son Lionel was trying to take advantage of the situation by insisting that Ruby move into assisted living while he sold her house out from under her. Despite his charm, Lionel seemed determined to crush Ruby at every turn. Her wealth was entirely tied up in her home. He called her house poor, and he couldn't wait to get his hands on it. Miriam let herself in by the front door, which Ruby had unlocked for her earlier. She found Ruby slumped in the living room chair. Ruby gestured with her head towards the bedroom, and Miriam went directly there. She found Lionel packing a suitcase. On the floor were a trunk and two large cardboard boxes. Clearly, he had been hard at work. He looked up when he saw her, and he bestowed the kind of flirtatious smile handsome men use to smooth their way through life, but it didn't work on Miriam. Ruby doesn't want to sell. She doesn't want to move, and I'm wondering why you are forcing the matter, Lionel. I think I know what's best for my mother, he answered without changing that smile. I think Ruby knows what's best for Ruby, Miriam said. With all due respect, this is a family matter. With all due respect, Miriam said, it all depends on how you define family. Ruby and I have been close for 65 years, a couple of decades longer than you've known her. As far as we're concerned, you're a nice lady, a good pal to my mother, and you've got zero to say about this situation. If you want to bring some soup around or send a card, feel free. As for this house, I'm going to sell it, and there's nothing you can do about it. He returned to stuffing Ruby's things into the suitcase. Ruby had quietly come to stand behind Miriam for this exchange. Sorry, Lionel, it's not your house to sell, she said. You can't take care of yourself with that dodgy arm, Mum, let alone this whole house. And you can't really afford to bring in full-time help on your Social Security. I'd hate to have to force you through the courts. The courts, Miriam cried. Yes, if she's making irrational decisions and putting herself in danger, there are things a son can do about it. The two women looked at each other. They made every effort to look somber, but they couldn't control themselves. Miriam giggled while Ruby laughed out loud. What's going on? Lionel asked. Ruby calmed herself enough to say, I believe a wife trumps a son, dear. Lionel looked concerned. Mom, you're not making sense. Tell him, Miriam. Your mother and I got married a few months ago. We worried about what you or the authorities might try to do to us someday. We're old women, living alone, solitary, low-hanging fruit, as they say. We figured we're like an old couple who've been together a very long time anyway, so we decided to make it official. Did you notice my ring, honey? Ruby waved her wrinkled hand in Lionel's direction. Or mine, Miriam said, showing off her identical gold band. And don't worry, Ruby said. Miriam will be living here as long as I need her. We'll be just fine. She looked at Miriam. Could you possibly take down that nasty sign in my yard? Yes, and I'll call the agent to cancel as well. Shall I say I'm a member of your family? Sure, tell them you're my spouse. The two women giggled and left the doorway of the bedroom, chatting happily. Put everything back nicely, will you, Lionel? Ruby said over her shoulder. His fading smile curled with anger, robbing him of his beauty, but his scowl formed too late for the women to notice. And that's the end. I have 2 books of short stories and 1 novel and a blog called Consenting Adult, which you can find at suecats.com. Thanks again to Writers Resist, and bye for now.
Okay, yay. Yeah, I thought she did a really great job. She wasn't sure about reading it and recording it, so I'll let her know that it went really well. I think you're on, Sarah.
Okie dokie. Yes, I like that story. I like that story a lot. Ron Dowell has 2 poems for us today. We Are What We Shine and Ebonics. Ron Dowell holds 2 master's degrees from California State University, Long Beach. In June 2017, he received the UCLA Certificate in Fiction Writing. His poetry resides in Penumbra. Did I say that right? Writers Resist, Oyster Rivers Pages, The Wax Paper, Callisto Gaia Press, the Penman Review, Packington Review Journal, and the Poming Pigeon. Poming Pigeon, right? Poming Pigeon?
Pigeon, that's correct.
Thank you. He's a 2018 PEN America Emerging Voices Fellow, and he also has a collection of short stories, Crooked Out of Compton. Hi, Ron.
Hi, Sarah. KB asked me initially about what's going on in Compton, and the more I thought about it, I think this particular poem, We Are What We Shine, answers that question. It's basically a shout out to Jacqueline Venters and Martha Barajas, who took it upon themselves in the midst of the pandemic when the government was doing nothing to feed people in Compton. And their effort is still going on now, but we desperately needed when they decided to not wait on the government and do it themselves. We Are What We Shine, after Jacqueline Venters and Martha Barajas. Bright as a jewel, we are what we shine. A gang's red, blue color-coded word clash. Compton's graffiti not so welcome sign. Compton Court obliterates the blue skyline. Angela's Abbey minarets, brown grass like burnished silver, we are what we shine. We suffer pothole streets and silent decline. Show taxes, limit terms, make thunder crash. Compton's graffiti not so welcome sign. Change your habits and shade the asinine who pour concrete slabs over weeping ash as the begrimed city loses its shine. Compton Creek crawdads, waters unwind, spawn Dr. Dre, Cost Lewis, Niecy Nash. Compton's artists unveil the welcome sign. Our shimmering gold, Venus, Kendrick's rhymes, Venters, Barajas, their COVID backlash. Bright as a jewel, we are what we shine. Compton rolls out our welcome sign. Thank you. Ebonics. My native tongue felt perfectly normal until they labeled it Ebonics in the 70s. School disparaged my native tongue, like jazz, denigrated and disrespected. The principal paddled me with the holy oak. The new whip burned my ash, lashing and tentacles. He tried to beat out vernacular for sleeping through American heroes like Jefferson Davis, Father Sarah, Charles Lindbergh. For his doctorate, a man discovered the new Negro language. Even today, I violate grammar rules, unconscious. Even today, I slip forward or back into natural speech. Even today, I sing coded enslaved spirituals. Wade in the water, for God's gonna trouble the water. Hounds don't follow when we wade in the water. I know what homie be doing. He be running. They say a child's personality forms by age 5. Knowing 2 languages, he knows 2 worlds. I learned a new language, but the new world hides. I'm burdened, weighted.
Ron, stop. Ron, you went mute after the word waited. Somehow you became muted.
Yeah.
So start the line that ends in waited.
Okay. Sorry about that. I learned a new language, but the new world hides. I'm burdened, weighted, an imposter in a world that squeezes me like a piece of coal. Under pressure, like a black diamond, I sparkle dark and hard. I chew steel. Thank you.
KB, you're muted too.
Thank you. I would have just prattled on. Thank you for taking care of me, Sarah. So Olalade, you are up next. I'm going to do a quick introduction and see if we can get your camera and audio on in the meantime. You're going to help me say your name, Olalade Akinlabi EJ.
No, it is Ololade Akinlabi Igi.
Igi. Okay, thank you for the correction. Olalade is a Nigerian poet. His works have been featured in a lot of literary publications around the globe, including, to name just a few of them, News for World Peace Anthology, Word Rhymes and Rhythm Anthology, Saber Literary Magazine, Wreath for a Wayfarer, Songs of Peace, the World's Biggest Anthology of Poetry 2020, Dissonance Magazine, Voice Journal, Northern Otter Press Journal, Levitate Magazine, Harbor Review, and 2020 Anthology out of Canada. So we're delighted that you're able to join us again from afar, definitely afar. Welcome.
Yeah. Can you all hear me? Yeah, I'm glad to be here once again. It seems I'm the only African here, and I'm glad to be amidst the great poets. My poem, rather, Letter to Aminu, explores the unfortunate situation in my country, which is insecurity. Over the years, the country has been bedeviled with insecurity ranging from terrorism, theft, all sorts of insecurity. And I wrote this poem 2 years ago. Unfortunately, the problem still persists. So the poem goes thus. Letter to Aminu. What greets you when you get here? Walls of broken spines, fences of bleeding bruises, burnt roofs that open mouths, windows with wounded hearts. Your father was a victim of the last bomb explosion, and his grave grows mushroom flowers. Your mother is an able handicap. On her cleavage are signatures of poverty. Awal, your sister, was shot by Boko Haram. That day, the clouds wept and the sky shrank. Akin, your brother, became a courageous coward. He fled to Ibadan on a day the night was burnt to ashes. That was the day we counted our dead and forgot numbers. What greets you when you get here? Your father's house that stands on one leg? Or your uncle in the wheelchair? Maybe our friend with broken arms? Or Amina your girlfriend with a bleeding vagina. Our village is a womb that harbors silence. Children no longer cry aloud. Instead, they sob silently, like their fathers do when coffins are thrown into 6 feet. What then can greet you when you get here? Men of khaki marching on the hungry soil. Bullet of bandits diving into the space. Blood of innocent souls bubbling like fountain. Amajiri holding their future in empty bowls. Or wails of a mother who just buried a son. Maybe, Mr. President, whose visit is for mass burial. Yet, under an umbrella, we still remain as one. Mr. President said our war is technically defeated. With one signed accord, we believe we shall see to the end of the war that ate your sister and father. Thank you.
Drinking this whiskey was a mistake because now I am an emotional mess. Thank you very much, Odalati.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Linda Lauderman, who's going to be reading the poem War Ghazal. Ghazal, remember the whiskey, pardon me. Linda grew up in Ohio, where she earned an undergraduate degree in journalism at Ohio University. Her news stories, features, and poetry have appeared in media outlets, magazines, and literary journals, most recently in Third Wednesday Quarterly of Literary and Visual Arts and the Scapegoat Review. She returned to school in the 1990s, graduating with a Master's of Liberal Studies and a Juris Doctorate degree from the University of Toledo. Toledo, sorry. For the last decade, she has volunteered as a docent at the Zeckelman Holocaust Center and recently gave her time as a writer and case screener for the Wayne County, Detroit Conviction Integrity Unit. I'm going to stop drinking now. Thank you. Linda.
Well, thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here among these amazing people, and so many of my wonderful friends are here. My father was born in Odessa, Ukraine, and came to the United States as a small child as a result of a pogrom in his hometown. And although I've never visited there, I've often wondered. And I was struggling to write this ghazal, and my friend Ziva Conviser sent me one she'd written about hope, and I was feeling hopeless. But I wrote this, and I still have hope that things can change. War ghazal. Again, we witness panicked people fleeing war. You tell me people don't care. It's Ukraine's war. Sitting in an Ann Arbor bistro, we order baked Turkish eggs, and I mumble, even Turkey opposes this war. One booth over, a woman applies siren red lipstick, then gestures at the screen over the bar, a televised war. Empty trains rumble down tracks outside the restaurant. The chef rings a bell. Everyone cheers, detached from war. At Costco, gas lines stretch into the street. A driver hollers to the car behind him, price gouging, a gas war. A man in army fatigue stands outside the corner CVS, hawking Ukrainian flag pins. He shouts, no more war. Down the block, neighbors discuss Ukraine's desolation. Isolated in a hospital basement, patients huddle, pawns of war. You switch on news of war-weary crowds cramming trains. I shut it off, suspended in silence, the distant din of war. In an ordinary neighborhood, a mother, her children lie dead. What more do we need to know about this fucking war? Pleas for ammunition, boots on the ground, a no-fly zone. We send sanctions and drones. Ukraine, it's your war. Babin Yar, 33,771 Jews murdered by bullets in a Ukrainian ravine. We agree, Zelensky, never again. still fire fuels a madman's war. Thank you.
Wowie. I'm posting a little note, but I wanted to reiterate that it's, I mean, we're inundated with war since I've been an adult. It seems like the ability of Ololade and Linda to write about war so beautifully is really moving. Thank you for that, both of you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yay. We do have time to make another round. So Elizabeth, did you bring another piece to read?
Yes, I did, and I thought I would switch gears a little bit. I write microfiction as well as poetry, and my first piece was hopefully indicative of a ray of hope from the perspective of the East Coast. So I thought I'd shift to the West Coast and recognize all the people who are concerned about the wildfires and the dreadful impact of climate change on that side of the US. And this one is entitled Heirlooms, and it first appeared in the journal Terrain in May of this year. And I think Sue Katz and I must have been on the same wavelength because there is a connection to real estate in this as well. Heirlooms. Richard Collins whipped out a business card and flashed his perfect teeth. Our offer for your land still stands. We would have demolished the house anyway. Ava McGregor's scarred boot stirred the ashes of her front porch. Her eyes followed the child scampering among the skeletons of heirloom fruit trees. Grandma, I found apples in the orchard. The rotten ones had yellow jackets on them, so I had to be careful. 6-year-old Isla beamed as she hefted a tote bag from the scorched grass. I'll help you plant the seeds. Ava gestured with her chin. There's your answer, Mr. Collins. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I grew up with those apples, got a few stings. Karen, did you bring another piece to read?
I actually brought several because I couldn't decide which one. Oh boy. Well, I've got one that speaks to Roe, even though it was written a few years ago, but I've also got a couple of Ukraine poems. I think I'd like to do one of the Ukraine poems. These came out, there's an anthology, Hole in the Head Review published an anthology for Ukraine. And at the end, there actually is a page of resources where you can go and donate to organizations that support Ukrainians. So I can put the link in the chat after I'm done. Anyway, this was written very shortly after Russia began its horror and insanity. It's called Equinox in Ukraine, March 2022. Spring's coming, so the calendar says. Fallow ground should be plowed, new seeds bought, save seeds planted. Their field supply are a need for sunflower oil, wheat for animal feed, sugar beets for sweetness. The World Data Center for Geoinformatics and Sustainable Development compares the climate to that of Kansas, slightly drier and cooler during the summer and colder and wetter during the winter. Barley is the usual spring crop. The source says nothing about unusual years. Every day, jubilant farmers haul Russian tanks from their fields. One has planted himself inside the hole on top. He waves a blue and yellow flag as his neighbor in the green and yellow John Deere tows the Hulk away. He hollers gleefully. We can tell his mood, even though we don't know his language, about the scrap metal payday that's coming soon. In the north, Chernobyl's sarcophagus gleams. North of the border, caches of nerve gas mature. The sun's getting higher, the ground's heating up everywhere. This year's crop will be sown between bombs. Hasting hands cast seeds in soil strewn with steel, watered with blood. Deadly serious, a comedian has become president of the world. Thanks.
Thank you. Wow. Let's see, Ron, did you bring another piece to share with us?
Yes, I do have another piece. And this piece is included in my poetry collection that actually was released about 10 days ago, and I'll put that in the chat. And it goes back to my favorite topic in our conversation, of course, KB. Why in the hell do you live in Compton? Incessant shaking heads ask me the question in evening classes. People at my public service job who've never visited the city and who know us only by what they've heard on radios, TV, or what's in newspapers, magazines, books, and the internet, drag and drop bullshit. The disarray and crime, minority stories, politicals, jail, poor people drown, struggle, degraded leaders who failed. Like Kool-Aid, we drink lies told. All they do is gangbang, gum stuck in crosshairs, guns drawn like Yosemite Sam, muzzle flip, fiercest voice and violent spirit. His index finger squeezes the matte black trigger, a tame recoil kick. Most make sure to steer purposely around Hub City, race the 91, 110, 710, and even the 405, freeways and highways, which one way or the other surround the city, cars spewing exhaust toxins, which waft over us like brown clouds, dirty, suffocating. Compton Creek spume swells the Pacific Ocean. Neighbor cities erase Compton street signs. I can't fathom our endless fight. I'm the odd bird who cheaped on street corners, perched on milk crates, outside liquor stores and 7-Elevens, survived dark alleys. Some hold breaths as if I'm a virus, caught by merely breathing my air, say it's my fault that I live in Compton. All I must do to solve their plight, they say, is stop breathing. I could leave if only I did this or that. It's like blaming Ahmaud Arbery, not the 3 white men who shot him for jogging. In schools, this is true, are better elsewhere. And police, Comptonville settlers faced hardships when they once farmed land in bleak weather, harsh, rainy and cold subsistence, no fuel. These days, stores and crime are better elsewhere. The police and their guns. The same question is inevitably asked, but none ever asked if I would live in their neighborhood, next door perhaps. No, no one ever saves the real estate ad or the web link for me. I love Compton because we fight, circling wagons for protection. I live in Compton because it's home. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
You're welcome.
Go Compton.
Go Compton.
Olalade, do you have another piece for us?
Yes, I do.
Great.
Yeah, this poem is titled What I Saw When Looking for My Bones at Lekki. But let me give you a little background of what inspired me to write this poem. On October 28, 2020, many innocent protesters were shot at Lekki, Lagos State, Nigeria, by Nigerian military men, just because they were protesting against police brutality. And it's quite unfortunate that till now, there is no justice for the gruesome killing. So I wrote this poem, and the poem goes thus. What I saw when looking for my bones at Lekki, I saw fragments of voices shuttered into pot of silence. I saw blood smoldering down the flag of a dreaded nation. High pitch of groans, the living lending breath to the dead. I saw bullets fall into slick of blood. Some dreading voices shouting, "End SARS." Where the moonlight descended, a girl's shadow ran behind her body. I saw khaki men marching on the hungry soil. They faded into rubbles of darkness. Waves steamed into waves. Turbidity of fear. Hefty shriek of sirens. Casualties poured into ambulances like hefty bags of rice. Meanwhile, in an enclosed darkness, a boy beside his mother's corpse used my bone to thump his mother, the boy said. This poem was published
Ololade,
in Pano.
Ololade, I think we've lost maybe the last 5 or 6 lines because you're freezing. Could you turn off your video and go back 5 or 6 lines?
Okay.
Yeah, try it
I
without the video.
saw khaki.
Try it without
Can
the
you hear me
video
now?
because you're freezing. Turn off your video and just
Can you
use
see
your
me?
audio.
Okay. Okay.
There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I saw khaki men marching on the hungry soil. They faded into rubbles of darkness. Waves steamed into waves. Turbidity of fear. Hefty shrieks of sirens. Casualties hauled into ambulances like hefty bags of rice. Meanwhile, in an enclosed darkness, a boy beside his mother's corpse used my bone to thump his mother. "Wake up, mama," the boy said. This poem was published in Panoply Literary Journal. And this poem means a lot to me because it talks about the gruesome killings of the EndSARS protesters in 2020. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Linda, do you have another piece for us?
I only have the one that you and I talked about. What do you think?
Well, I would go for it because you can
Okay.
get some, yeah, I mean, get some
Let me grab
feedback
it.
just from people's reactions. So we're a friendly audience, right?
Right. This is without Kit's edits. Circus. The circus moves to Uvalde. Children dead beneath their desk. Do we have the ringmaster's attention? Look. See the dancing bears. They prance, covered in red, white, and blue. The animal trainer snaps his whip. We barely flinch. A fun ambulance walks a tight wire. We know she could fall. We watch anyway. It's hot inside the tent. Manure is everywhere. We ignore the stench and turn to watch the elephants enter the ring. Oh, think of the mother elephants, how they shield their calves, rushing to protect them. Wait, why isn't the gallery clapping? Where's the laughter? Has the show lost its luster? We needn't worry. Our right to see the circus is safe.
Yeah, I thank you, Linda. I want to reiterate Karen's request that if the pieces you read that we did not publish are available online somewhere and you can post a link in the chat, that would be great. Yeah, our right to see the circus is safe. Bam, indeed, Tara. Yikes. So I think I want to thank everybody for coming. If you have a book coming out or a collection out, please post some links in the chat. I will try to grab some of that and post it with the video once I get the video settled. I'm still remembering how to do that. I haven't had to do it till we started this up again. We've had to do it in years. Any last comments, anybody? Questions, anything? Okay, indeed, awesome work, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Yay. I'm gonna leave. Thank you, Linda. I'm gonna leave the chat up. So if you have information to share, we can grab it out of there. And again, I'll pull any links out of that and post it with the video. Thank you all. Have a lovely evening, what's left of it.
Bye.
Thank you for having us.
Yay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all. This was a treat. It's always a treat.
Was wonderful.
I don't want to be the first to leave.
I know, it's hard. Don't worry, I'll be the last because I'm going to capture stuff. So.
Okay.
I gotta go. Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.